My name is Jason Blades. I'm from Beaverton, Michigan. I'm 29 years old. I've been derbying almost 15 years, and I work in purchasing at a local manufacturer.
John Blades, age 59. Me and my brother used to derby back in the mid-'80s through the late '90s. Run my own business, self-employed, and our roots run deep here in the Beaverton area.
Jared Blades, 27. I've been derbying around 15 years. I do the ordering for maintenance at the place that I work. I do welding on the side, and I also sell steel. What I would say to somebody who's thinking about getting into it is it's a lot of work. It is definitely a hobby. It definitely takes a lot of time, and it really is a lot of fun.
The thing I would say is for anybody that wants to get into it, there's a lot of time involved in it. The biggest thing is start out small and just decide how much you want to. Within 5 years, you'll know if you want to stay doing it or it's too much work.
I would describe it as very time-consuming. No matter what class or level you run, I think there's definitely a lot of work and time and money that goes into the cars, but it's definitely an enjoyable hobby. For a competitive person, it's a good way to compete and meet a lot of new people and get the thrill of victory. How I got started, yeah, our dad and uncle ran back in the 80s and 90s, so Jared and I were around it pretty much when we were in diapers all the way up through high school. Once we got into high school, we started running ourselves and just kind of took it from there. So it's definitely seen a lot of changes.
You know, you grow up around this stuff, and it's like, you know, the derby life chose me. I mean, I didn't shoot. You know, you're born into doing what you're doing, and you know, we got old enough to reach the pedals, and we were out here. You know, Dad used to put us on his lap, running cars around the trails. You know, and me and my cousins would be in the back. You know, and they'd pick up station wagons. We'd be running them around the field, and we'd be in the back, you know, flinging around like pinballs. You know, and that's what it was. I mean, that, you know, does that car run? Does that car run? No, it needs this. You know, let's get it running so we can go have some fun. You know. And that's what it was. And then once we got old enough to actually get into the pits at the fairs, we were running.
We were running cars in the late '80s, '90s. I ran 2 sedans total, everything else was wagons and Imperials.
The first vehicle I built and drove was a Suburban, and then the second vehicle I built and drove was a Suburban, but the first full-size rear-wheel drive car I drove was a 75 Impala. Wound up getting 3rd place. I was 17, and it was the best feeling in the world.
First car I ever drove was a '69 Bel Air. My father-in-law didn't like the idea, like I said earlier, of me running up and down the road with a 72 Nova with a 427 in it, and with his daughter and his grandsons in it, and he found me a '69 Bel Air. It was an old cop car, and I'll never forget. I pulled in there and had 427 on the side of it, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to do something out here. And I went back and hit, and the guy hit me on the other side. I pulled ahead, he hit me again, and the ass end of that car was on the ground. And I sat there and looked around, and I thought, I'm the first car out in the first heat, what the hell's going on? Well, there was 12 wagons in that first heat. Next year I went and bought a wagon, and I won a heat the next year, and it's very addictive. Everybody, like, you come out, you just point to the crowd, you feel like you're Michael Jordan out there. I mean, it's real high.
I mean, I was the younger brother, so my brother ran first. So I just, you know, he was gonna build another Suburban, and well, who's gonna run that one? Well, I guess I'm running now.
You know, my favorite car when we were running Imperials, you know, you put a lot of motor into a car like that, you put a gear in the back of it, you know, you got a 5,500, 6,000 pound car, you can go out there and just crush on people, and I mean, you're just a big fist out there. I mean, I can remember having 3 or 4 cars ganging up on me at a derby, and the flag guy just sit there and watch them do it, and they're making full-length runs on me, and I'm watching the, you know, passenger side. Remember, we didn't have cages in these cars back in the '90s. And I got out of the corner, and the guy that was sitting there holding me, you know, he couldn't back up. I didn't pay any attention to him. The Lincoln that was making a run, I went and broke his front wheel off the Cadillac. I went and parked him on top of the Oldsmobile. And then the other guy that was sitting there holding me went down the track, and I remember turning that car around, pointing at him, and the flag guy comes out there running and hollering. I was so mad I would have drove right through the guy. But, you know, those Imperials, you go out there, and if you get that car loose on the track, it's just a lot of fun to run.
You grow up with stories like these, man. The derby life chose you. Like I say, I mean, you ask about us getting into it, and it's just, your time comes, and then it's there, and then, you know, here we are building, you know, and it's hard to get rid of. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd say I mean, if I had to pick a car out of a line to run and to compete with, it'd be probably a 9802 Crown Vic. But the cars I've run the most and that I like running the most is like a 90s style town car. You know, just more familiar with those, and that's just it's a sign of the times, I guess. You know, that's more what I prefer. So,
my favorite car to run right now, Cadillacs, man. I mean, you know, I had one down at Urban Destruction. It was a limo even, and in a Cadillac, you build those things right, and you can do just about anything you want in them.
I mean, you know, we could defer to Dad on this. You know, back when he started to when we started, and then from when we started to now, you know, you're spanning 30 years. So yeah, I mean, when you guys started, it wasn't a whole lot.
You know, the sport changes, it takes so much time, and you know, just gutting the cars is so much more time consuming than even that. The money issues, and we could buy an advantage. When we were running cars, we could buy an advantage. I mean, I could put a heck of a motor in there and run against guys with junkyard motors. And I build all my own motors. I didn't go to engine shops. I mean, you know, we had the cranks turned, blocks board, the whole bit. Maybe they were too tight at times, but you know, we had some epic battles with guys that, you know, local fairs and fairs around here and stuff that, you know, you just don't see it anymore now. My boys run out of state, and the competition level that they run at is, you know, they're playing major league ball here, and we were playing high school ball, and we were playing. And you know, I mean, there might be 12 cars in a heat, but there was only 2 or 3 you had to watch out in your heat. You just had to get to the feature. And then there'd be 10 pretty good cars, but still, I had to rebuild tranny. I was running aluminum radiators, headers. I mean, you know, we had electric fans on them, you know, and stuff that people take for granted today. Nobody else around here was doing that stuff. And I mean, I'm all about winning. I mean, I didn't come up here to get second. You know, and I told my brother that, and we had, you know, some pretty good battles just between me and my brother, and I won a few of them, he won a few of them, but the sport has definitely changed.
When, you know, starting out, your local show, that's the only derby in the world, and a lot of people start that way. You know, we started going down to Bash for Cash in 2013, and then you know, that was an eye-opening experience. It was like, wow, look at these cars down here. You know, I want to have a car that looks like, you know, was built by a professional and all this and that. So we started coming up here and we started building that way. The way the builds have changed since we've started is just astronomical. I mean, even, you know, when we started running 15 years ago, there was no Ski Inc. There was no NLR. The parts every year changed so much. And then, you know, those spindles came out, the rear ends came out. I mean, you know, if you wanted to go to Blizzard Bash or Bash for Cash today and compete in the kicker class, or, you know, the national team at Blizzard Bash, you'd have to have a $50,000 car. And, you know, there's a happy medium in the rules where we like to run and where we kind of stay at. I mean, but to where it's not too crazy, but you can also build a good car.
My favorite memory is watching my boys run. I mean, it's you know, I don't hunt, I don't fish. I'm not, you know, not patient enough for that. Both my boys, you know, also have Camaros. I mean, they don't just run demolition derbies. I mean, you know, my boys are pretty well balanced. I mean, they have hot rods, they have derby cars, they both have trucks. I mean, bottom line is, you know, I know Jared won a derby. We were just talking about it. Little trophy right over here. You know, he went up there and ran a car, and it wasn't a huge derby, but it was at Hale, and it got right down to it where him and another car, they were making hits back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and Jared's car kept quitting and start and quit and start and quit, and it was getting hot. And the other guy's car, he didn't have half the car Jared did, but it just kept running. And finally, Jared got a big boom on him and beat him, and we got the motorhome, was looking at it, and one of the valves, the keeper on the driver's side, had come off, and for some reason the valve didn't drop down into the piston, but you know, he barely held on to win that one right there. And like I say, it wasn't a big one or nothing, but we went to the local bar afterwards and stuff and had a little celebration stuff. And as far as Jason, you know, Jason's had a couple of really big wins and stuff, and I'm not talking just money and stuff, but you know, they went up to the Gladwin Fair up there, first time went up there, and it wasn't a big show, nothing like what we had, but he got to win that up there, and we ran up there, me and my brother ran up there 15 years, and my brother wound up winning it the last year we ran it, you know. So, I mean, it's just good to see your kids go out and do stuff and succeed, maybe in spots that we didn't, and, you know, and winning and losing, I mean, flip a coin. You might win today by the luck of the draw, and tomorrow, you know, tomorrow you lose.
My favorite memory probably would be a feature win I got in 2015, North Branch, Michigan, the first show we ran for Jack. Jared and I drew the same heat and pretty much went out and steamrolled everybody, drove off the track. Didn't hardly touch the cars after the heat, pretty much topped them off with fuel. and then went out there in the feature, and we had a buddy that was running with us that wound up getting second to me. Jared got hung up on a car and wound up getting fourth.
My favorite memory, and I'm going to go a different direction with this, was I got to tell this story. We were cutting it pretty close for urban destruction last year. I mean, I picked the motor up from the shop on Monday night, had a new cradle set up, all that. We put it all together. We were putting the motor in a Cadillac on Wednesday, and we had to run. I mean, the heats were Friday night. We're 10 hours away, man. I mean, we were scrambling to get this car done. Me and Dad were out here just, you know, we put the cage in on Sunday. We built that entire car in like 4 days. And a Cadillac, you cannot build in a hurry. You know, the tranny tunnels, it takes 8 hours to set the motor in those cars if you're gonna have a tran brace in them. But, you know, me and my buddy wound up hauling the car down. We left at 2 a.m. on Friday morning. We got down there at noon. We went through inspection, and we still had to put the hood on the car. I mean, we had to come along the fenders up on the trailer to make it down there because the fenders were rubbing the tires on the trailer you know, and we were 2.5 hours away from home when we found it out. At 3 in the morning, we're pulled off on the side of the road, you know, like.
Cadillacs are very heavy.
How are we gonna?
Had to shift the car a little bit.
Yeah, I had to move the car forward on the trailer because it was wagging me, and you know, we're just looking at each other like, man, how are we gonna move? You know, how are we gonna get this car down there? We're still 8 hours away, you know. So we got down there, and we got through inspection just fine, and we had to, you know, we went back and we still had to put the hood on the car after that. And I asked the official all about it, and he's like, okay, you know, and just make sure we're not doing anything that, you know, would get you disqualified later. And you know, we get it, because that's not what I'm about. We don't go back and weld stuff on the frame after we get inspected. You know, we go, you know, we're to the rules. You know, it's a maximum capacity, but we're also to the rules. We don't do anything we're not supposed to, and you know, something will push a little bit, but not, you know, to where, I mean, we get caught with anything. But I went out for the heat, and it was just raining all day long, 45 degrees out, if that. We're trying to torch, and we had a couple things that they allowed us to weld on the core support, and we're out here with a generator stick welder trying to get the welder to, you know, barely make this thing stick. And I went out for my heat, and I was just like, man, I haven't slept in 36 hours, you know, and I'm just ready to go, man. So I, you know, pulling out, and this is a big show too. You know, these big shows are just completely different than county fair shows. And you're out there with these, you know, everybody's got 500 horsepower and wagons that are built, you know, not like a county fair car, but real wagons that, you know, are just built right to the gill. And I'm in my Cadillac, and, you know, we're out here, and I come down the track and I hit one of them wagons, and, you know, right off the get-go, these guys are pulling up and they're backing up and lining up, and we're just, you know, I'm looking down the line of this thing, it's like sharks coming in, you know. And, green flag drops, and I was just right to the wood right away, man. I mean, all these guys are flying around like bats. I'm just out there just whipping Brodies and hitting these wagons and this and that, and they threw a red flag, and a driver in one of the wagons nods at me, and I nodded back, and those guys, I tell you what, I mean, this isn't a winning story, but they swarmed me, they put me on the berm, and I got out of that car, man. I was like, that was the most pumped up I've been in a car. And then the next day we went out for the cons heat, and I wound up actually flexing a 1/4-inch ski brace and breaking my tranny in the cons heat. And you know, to come away from a big show, almost making the feature like that, and still having a straight car, really, I was really proud of that.
My favorite part is, man, there's just nothing like getting that big trophy at the end of the day. I mean, there's so much, you know, it's just, I can't think of anything other than maybe shooting a big buck. Is about the only other thing I can compare to just, you know, sitting in the seat when it's over and the guy's bringing you the flag. All the work that went into the car, all the money and time and everything, and the trip down and the trip back and everything, that really, you know, anytime you can come away with that is the best thrill that you can experience legally. My least favorite part, it's a lot of hours. You know, there's always, you know, it's stressful, trying to make deadlines, trying to make the show, you know, fighting the car, fighting the parts. You know, it's definitely, you know, you know, we've had builds go good and builds go bad, but, you know, that's probably my least favorite part. But I will say, you know, if you don't enjoy putting time in on them, then you're in the wrong sport. You know, you got to enjoy being in the shop, you got to enjoy spinning wrenches, you got to enjoy grinding and welding and sweating in July. And you know, if you can't at least take some, pride in it, then you're definitely doing the wrong thing.
My favorite part, me and my brother used to run cars, and we've took as many as 4 cars to a derby before, and each one of us would run a car in each heat, just make sure we had 2 of them in the feature. But when them cars pull out of here and you see those red cars going down the road, that's the best part, because you succeeded. I used to get up and tell my boys, it's derby day today, and we'd be getting the tools around and stuff, and it's just if you get them cars down there, and if both cars get in the feature, win or lose, it's successful. I mean, I'd like to say just showing up, but in the same sense, so too, very, very disappointing part when you get to some place like the boys took them cars and the rule was not clear exactly how it was written. Our cars were built to a T. It was exactly how the rule was written, but it wasn't how the rule was intended. So they had cars down there that were a couple inches shorter than everybody else's car. I thought for a second, my boys must be geniuses, but I guess not, because the way it worked out to be was they discussed the rule the year before, but they hadn't actually changed the way the rule was, And the other part is win or lose, even if you win all that money, you bring that car home, it's pretty much junk. So now you got to tear it all apart and start all over again. And it's like the saying goes, win or lose, I know I'm gonna be sore tomorrow morning.
My favorite part is, going out there and putting on a show, man. I mean, the money's great, the trophies are great, but I mean, you're in a Cadillac and these guys are in wagons and Fords, and you're out there with your motor that you built by, at least, your own stuff anyway, and you're putting it out there in front of everybody. And
like I say, it's a lot of fun, and if you're a competitive type person, there really isn't much of a bigger high. I've talked to friends that run circle track cars, and and they'll tell you they've been in the derby car a time or two, and they'd rather run the derby cars other than they've been doing circle track cars so long. So.
Well, why do I derby? Like I've said this a couple times already. I mean, to be the guy that put on the show, to be the guy that everybody's looking at, even if I don't win, it's not about that to me. It's about, did I put on a show? Do I have respect to these guys? Or am I just nothing? Did I go out there? I might get 10th place, but I look good doing it, hopefully. If I wanted to earn money, I could go get a second job. The trophies are great, don't get me wrong, and the victories, and you'll always be the guy that won, that derby in 2017. But they'll have to look back in the books, because 5 years from now, are they going to remember? But everybody's going to remember the time that guy got rolled, or that that red Cadillac that was just putting it on people all night long. Don't remember how we did, but everybody remembers that car. And that's why I derby.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is, it's definitely a lifestyle. It's definitely it drives a lot of, a lot of everything that you do, as in, vacations and stuff. Well, what derby are we gonna go watch this year, or, going to shows and meeting the guys and meeting new people, and, if you can sprinkle in some wins along the way, it's definitely, makes it worth it in the end. We grew up around it. We just kind of started, naturally doing it, and it's just what we do. I know a lot of people outside the sport, they don't really understand. You can say that about a lot of sports, that, people don't really see why you do it. But, the biggest thing for me is, I like building something, and then taking it out there and seeing it through, and it's good to look back and see what you built, what you accomplished, and years from now, when all you got's the trophies and the memories, and you can look back and say, yeah, we had a great time doing it.